button. We're going all kinds of things happening. There we go. All right. So we've got the world in our hands and we want to eliminate that food waste because it can make a big impact on our environment. So let's talk a little bit about that. As I mentioned, we're going to cut your food waste, help you save money, and make a big impact on the environment. So this is really interesting. 33% of all food produced is wasted every year. Oh my gosh, that is a huge amount, 33%. That translates to $1.2 trillion worth of food annually. So if you're complaining about your food bill, let's think about that. Holy smokes, that is a lot of money wasted. It's central to some of the key challenges facing the world today, including hunger and poverty, climate change, health and well-being, and the sustainability of agricultural and oceans. Wasting food is also a waste of the energy to grow food, to harvest, to process, and to cook food. Because if you cook it and then you don't eat it all and you end up throwing it away, I mean, that's a waste. If food waste were a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emission producing country in the world. Think about that. 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions each year are due to food loss and waste. So that's a lot. It's roughly equivalent to the emissions from the global aviation sector. So think about every airplane across the entire world. That is the same impact as food waste with those greenhouse emissions. The connection between food waste and greenhouse gas emissions is particularly strong with methane. And many of you may have heard this, that, when produce is tossed into the landfills, it starts emanating this methane gas, and it's a powerful greenhouse gas. And when it's composing in the landfills, that's exactly what we're doing. So, you know what? We got to love our Mother Earth. We've got to stop food waste for the purpose of saving our earth, but also for saving money. And I hope that you will all agree with me. So I'm going to share a couple of tips with you today. And then we're also going to I'm going to actually turn the PowerPoint off, and we're going to show you a couple of things that I think will help you really learn some of the tips. Almost 50% of all fruits and vegetables produced is wasted every year, which is equivalent to about 3.7 trillion apples. Oh my gosh. And if 25% of all food currently lost or wasted was saved, it would be enough to feed 870, I should say, million hungry people. So, y'all, these statistics come right off the stopfoodwaste.com website. And I just think it is absolutely staggering to think about these numbers. And again, let me know what you think about those numbers. All right, so couple of tips. We're going to start with number one is make a grocery list. This is super important. A family of four loses around $1,500 a year by wasting food. And so if you plan ahead by making a list and only buying what you know you'll use, that's going to make a big difference. You want to avoid impulse purchases. So, we all know what those are like. We're going down the aisle. It's usually on an end cap, or gosh, especially right there by the cash register, especially if you've got a long line. We see this and it looks really yummy and we grab it. That's an impulse purchase. So you really want to put yourself in a position where you make that list and you absolutely stick to it to a T. The next tip I've got for you is to learn how to make meals where you buy things with one purchase that can do a lot of different things. So my first tip is family-sized packages of ground beef. Now, some of you may be cooking for huge families. Some of you may be cooking for one or two. I cook for two, but I do believe in buying the family-sized packs of meat. It's always less per pound. It wouldn't make any sense if I wasted it, but you know what? I never waste any of it. So first thing is you can brown some of it ahead of time, because there's always those meals that we need brown ground beef. And rather than putting a pan on the stove and browning the ground beef and then having to scoop it all out and grease is flying all over and you got to wash the pan and wash the stove. You can actually brown up to 3 pounds of ground beef in our stack cooker, and it's 6 minutes per pound. So if you do 3 pounds, it's about 18 minutes. I usually put it in for 9, and then I take it out, stir it around, and put it back in for 9. It gives me 18 minutes of total cook time, and all of the grease will drain right out of that. And then I will freeze those individual containers of ground beef into a smaller meal-sized portion. So my container of choice that I like to use is our freezer mate. So this is a perfect size for 1 pound of ground beef that's already browned. Perfect amount for a small family. Again, if you have a larger family, that may not be enough ground beef for your tacos or spaghetti sauces. So we do have a larger size that might work a little bit better for you. So that's a great size. It's twice the size. So again, it just really depends on what size family that you have and how much you're cooking for. But think about it. You know, we make tacos, we make spaghetti with meat sauce, so many different things that you need brown ground beef. You can do the same thing with sausage. So you can buy like already made sausage, or you can actually buy the ground pork and add your own seasonings to that, brown it up, get all the grease out of it, put that in there. So that way, when you need some ground pork for a casserole, you've got that ready as well. So that is one thing. Second of all is with our phenomenal hamburger freezer sets, you can make your very own hamburgers. And so I always make a couple of pounds of those as well. And then I also will freeze some of the ground beef in 1 pound containers. You might want to do it a little bit bigger, again, depending upon the size of your family, because you might not want brown ground beef. You might need meat to be able to make a meatloaf, for example. And so you just want that. So that family size pack of ground beef. So think in advance how many meals during your shopping period, if you're shopping every 2 weeks or even once a month, how many times are you going to make ground beef, and how can you save money doing that? Second is a larger piece of meat is a lot less expensive. So one of our very favorite things to do is to buy a cut of meat called a London broil. I've got a picture of one up here. And a lot of people, when I tell them about that, they're like, I've never heard of that. A London broil is super tender. You can grill it outside. You can broil it in the oven. The key is you want to put some delicious seasonings on top of that. And again, you slice it nice and thin. It's absolutely delicious if you serve it with a little au jus or gravy or even a horseradish sauce. So kind of think the way you would have maybe prime rib, but it's super thin. But here's the best part is there's always leftovers. And so the leftovers, you can save some of it for using for roast beef sandwiches if you want to. You could do an open face sandwich. But I like to cut it into little strips. So I don't cut any leftovers until I'm ready to use it. So maybe the next day or the day after, we might have fajitas, totally repurposing it. And I'll take each of those little slices and I'll cut them in strips, and then they're all ready. Or you could do it ahead of time if you wanted to and add some seasoning. So that's all you got to do is add some chipotle seasoning. If you don't have chipotle, you can add a combination of chili powder and cumin. That works really well too. So my goodness gracious, you can get several meals out of a London broil if you're cooking for just 2 people or 3 people. If you're cooking for 4, get a larger size and you can do the same thing. Next is those family size packages of chicken breast. It's always a great way to be able to save a ton of money because it is less expensive. Look and see what's on sale. So this is another little tip. Every Wednesday, a different meat is going to be on sale. So if you look at your the little advertisements that come out, one Wednesday beef is on sale, one Wednesday pork is on sale, one Wednesday chicken's going to be on sale. So you may not be able to do all of your meat shopping all at one time, but if you buy enough for the month, when you buy it and then you're rotating your meals, you're going to find that after you do that, it's going to create that habit for you and you'll have that system. All right, so chicken breast. So when I buy those, I go ahead and cut some of it up in cubes for stews. You guessed it. I use those same freezer containers that I already told you about. I cut some up in strips for stir fry or again for fajitas. And then you can also use the leftover of that for soup. So that's great if you've got that rotisserie chicken. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a training on 5 meals with 1 rotisserie chicken. And if you missed that, You can scroll it down and you'll find it right here. That might give you some great ideas. 5 meals with a rotisserie chicken. That is the best value that you're going to find in your grocery store. And then next, we're going to talk about ham. Some of you may have had ham for Easter, so you might have some leftover. So you've got your primary meal. You can have beans and ham. You can cube some of it for casseroles. You can have ground ham. So we have our mincer that's great for making ham salad. My favorite, oh my gosh, ham and cheese sliders. So you just need little pieces of ham and you're going to put that with some Swiss cheese on the Hawaiian sweet rolls and put those into, again, depending on the size of your ham family, an 8x8 pan or a 9x13. And you're going to mix up a mixture of Worcestershire sauce and butter and poppy seeds and some onion salt, and you're going to pour that over the top and you're going to bake those in the oven. And I'm going to tell you, oh my gosh, it's delicious. That cubed ham, you can also use making a quiche for breakfast. And of course, you can use it for potato soup as well. So learning to buy larger cuts of meat per pound, it's going to be a little bit less expensive. Each Wednesday, look to see what's on sale. So you're buying what's on sale, and then that gives you that rotation that you're going to need. So I hope that gives you a couple of ideas on how you can really make a big difference in your food dollar. And of course, when you learn to make all these other meals from what I call planovers, there will not be any waste. Because a lot of times people tell me, my family doesn't like leftovers. And that's because if you serve it to them looking like the same thing that they already ate, you're absolutely right. A lot of them won't like it. But if you like add some different things, like I said, turn that London broil into fajitas, they won't even know it's the same meat. I'm telling you, it will really stretch your food dollars for sure. All right, next is you want to learn the art of freezing. We toss out about 300 pounds of food each year. So getting in the habit of freezing leftovers, breads, vegetables, fruit, instead of tossing them in the garbage will really make a big difference. But it's important that you learn the right way to freeze. So we have our new silicone bags. They're great for freezing, but we also have our freezer mates, which I personally love. The most important thing is you want to make sure you get all the air out of your container because that's how you eliminate freezer burn. Now, I want to talk about the difference between freezer burn and ice crystals. Okay, that's important. Freezer burn is what happens when your food oxidizes in the freezer. Typically happens when you have too much air in the container or you don't have an airtight container. And so it's going to look kind of dried and shrivelly looking. It's not appetizing at all. It's not really bad to eat. It just usually has an icky taste. So that's why you don't want that to happen. It's not, you're not going to get food poisoning from it. It just is not tasty at all. So you want to eliminate that risk. But it's not uncommon, especially if you're using a good container like Tupperware, to have ice crystals. And ice crystals are completely different. And here's why. Your ice crystals, because our seals have an airtight seal, your food has got moisture in it. All food is made up of moisture. And so that moisture cannot escape an airtight container. And so what happens is that moisture is evaporating, right? Coming out of the meat, it can't go anywhere. So when you open up your container, it's not going to be unusual for you to have some ice crystals on the seal and even on the container. That is not freezer burn. So oftentimes people are like, oh, my food got freezer burned in my Tupperware. Nope, that is not freezer burn. Freezer burn is the one that looks all dried and icky. Those are ice crystals. It's because the crystals, your Tupperware did its job. It eliminated the ability for the moisture to escape. All you got to do is scrape that moisture back on your food. That's what you want. So if you thaw it on your countertop or in the refrigerator, that's the best place. But if you've got it hard as a rock and you've got a little bit more time and your house isn't too warm, you could put it on the counter as well. But normally you want to defrost in the refrigerator to keep it chilled. As it melts, those ice crystals will go back down in the food. And again, you're not wasting any of your food dollars whatsoever. So learn how to freeze. And part of that is to make sure you've got the best items around. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about things that I freeze all the time. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite things to do, and that is to use up my leftover bananas for banana bread. So I'm going to make some of that right now because I want you to look at this banana. A lot of people would take this banana and they would throw it away. It is pretty bruised, but this is perfect for banana bread. So I'm just going to peel this up, and I want you to see, as icky as this is on the outside, it looks perfectly fine in the inside. Look at that. It has a little bit of brown, but it's nothing bad and rotten. So that is going to actually get used in our banana bread. And so if you're ever tempted to look at a banana like that and pitch it, don't. Now, you also don't want to pitch out your peels because these are great to add to your plants. So if you've got any plants outside, that's going to be a perfect thing. All right, so I've got 3 bananas in here, and all I'm going to do is mush them up. And I don't want to mush them a lot. And the reason I don't want to is I kind of want them to be a little chunky. So I'm using my whisk. All right. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to add a couple of other yummies. So I'm going to add some melted butter. So I melted the butter inside of our microwave pitchers. We put the cover on it, and that way the butter doesn't splatter all over. So that's my very first ingredient. And we'll just stir that around. All right. And totally mix that in with our bananas. So that's what it's going to look like. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in our baking soda and a little bit of salt. So I love this little tiny measuring spoon that I have. This is my little bit of salt. And I'm going to put a little bit of baking soda in here. Not baking powder, you want baking soda, okay? Just a little half teaspoon of that. All right. Next, we're going to add an egg to it. So I'm going to use that same container that I had the butter in, and I'm going to put my egg in it. I never crack my egg directly into my food because you never know. You could get a bad egg, and I don't want to waste all that yummy banana. All right, so I'm just going to scramble that up with my whisk and add it to my banana mixture. All right, next we're going to add a little bit of sugar, actually a lot of bit of sugar. All right. And our next ingredient is some vanilla. Okay. So this is a big jar of vanilla. I always buy my vanilla whenever we go on a cruise to Mexico. I always make sure I get vanilla while we're there. That's the best. All right. Now, I still have to add flour, but the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to chop up some nuts, and I'm going to add the nuts now. And the reason I'm going to do that is I have learned that if I add the nuts at this point, because the batter is still kind of runny, it's actually going to be a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to put about a half a cup of walnuts. So again, I buy walnuts in a big container, Costco, and then I keep them in the freezer because they'll last forever if you do that. All right, so this is our little chopper. I'm just going to pull this a couple of times to get these to the right consistency. Perfect. So look at that. Sprinkle that in, and we'll mix that now with our banana mixture. All right. And now we're going to put in our flour a little bit at a time because it's going to get nice and thick. So I love this recipe. It's super, super easy. Let me double check and make sure I haven't gotten anything because, nothing is worse than having that happen, right? All right, so let's double check and make sure I got it all. Okay. Hmm, got it. All right, so we're going to add our flour. All right, egg, flour, vanilla, sugar, salt, baking soda, butter. All right, we got it all. All right, so I'm going to add the rest of my flour. One of these days I'm going to print that recipe out, but I always just go online and get it. It's under it's Simply Recipes banana bread recipe. Okay. Super simple. And I find that I always have the ingredients that it asks for at home. So that's one of the other reasons I really like it. All right, so I'm just whisking this and you'll see it's a really thick batter now. And I'm using my whisk. And once I make sure I don't have any powder, no white flour showing, then I know it's great. Now that recipe does not call for nuts, but I always add the nuts and I do a half a cup. So when you look at that recipe, you won't see that. All right, so now what we're going to do is I am going to make, instead of making banana bread, you can make banana bread with this recipe. I'm going to make muffins. And I like to do muffins because, again, there's just two of us. And I find if I make bread, it's a lot of bread for two people. So by making muffins, guess what? You can freeze them. Yes. All right. So I'm using our silicone muffin mold and we will fill our muffin cups about 2/3 of the way. Oh, that was more than 2/3 of the way. And then we're going to put it in the oven. So muffins don't take as long to cook as your bread. So instead of cooking it for an hour, like you'd have to if you were making bread, 55 minutes normally, I am only going to cook this for 25 minutes. Big difference, right? Okay, so I've got a little bit too much in my first cup, as I mentioned, so I'm going to get a spoon and scoop some of that out because we want them to be evenly cooked, right? There we go. All right. Now, you can make, that's probably going to make another batch.
Gina, can you put your camera down a little?
Yeah,
Okay,
coming up for you. There we go.
thanks.
So there we go. Scooped them all in there. I'm going to put them in the oven and we'll bake those for 25 minutes. All right. At 350. All right. So now that we got that part out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about some other things that I'm going to do to really maximize my food and really save me from wasting things. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things that are going on in my life. So I'm getting ready to leave to go to Miramata. So I'm going to be gone for a couple of days. So, I took a look in the refrigerator to figure out, and what is it that I've got that I probably need to do something with. And so we had a unique situation. I know not everybody has this happen, but we had house guests that were here without us, and they've now been gone now. Been 2 weeks, you guys, but they bought a lot of groceries and then they left. I haven't used them all. Fortunately, I have Tupperware, so it's kept them fresh. So I want to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So they purchased, and I don't ever buy these, but they bought these gigantically big bell peppers. So I always buy the little ones because then I can just chop up one or two and put it in a salad. And I don't ever like make stuffed peppers or anything like that. But I got these great big peppers. And these have been in the refrigerator now for 2 weeks. And look at those. Why? Because they're in the Tupperware Fridge Smart. And that's so important. So they also had a bunch of celery. Now, I want to share something with you. I didn't have enough Fridge Smart to put everything in. And I thought, I'm going to do an experiment just for because I knew I had this class coming up. So I left a couple of it out. And I want you to look at this. It's doing the hula. Isn't that funny? That is what happens to celery when you do not put it in Tupperware. But I want to just share something. A lot of people would throw that out, but I was Googling about this because I don't really ever have this problem. And so I took one of my Fridge Smart containers and I filled it with water and ice cubes just a little bit ago. And I am going to just take this and I'm going to put it inside of here in this ice cold water. I'm going to cut it because it won't fit. Because if I don't cut it, it's going to be awkward. Okay, so I'm just going to cut it in half. Okay, so we'll put all these pieces inside. And I'm going to show you before we finish up today what happens to celery when you put it in ice cold water. All right, so I'm going to stick this right over here. Just kind of get it out of the way. And then we will come back to that. Okay, so I'm going to have a salad tonight. That's what we're having for dinner. And so I've already got my lettuce inside of here. And so there's a little bit of cabbage. Funny story about cabbage. OMG, you guys. So last weekend, I had an event with our Rotary. It was fun. We did a paint and sip. And at our paint and sip, all of us volunteered to make something. And so I volunteered to make coleslaw for 70 people. So I send my husband to the grocery store and I tell him, according to the recipe, because I found the recipe and then you multiply how many servings that you want. And I needed 70 servings, right? So according to the recipe, I was going to need 9 small heads of cabbage. So this is what I said to him. This is a small head. This is a medium. This is a large. So I don't know what size you're going to have at the grocery store. If they have small ones, get 9. If they have medium ones, then get 6. And if they've got the big ones, just get 4. Guess what happened? 9 big cabbages. Isn't that hilarious? So, oh my gosh, you guys, we had lots of things to do with cabbage. So the great thing about cabbage is that you can freeze it. Now, some of you might be thinking, you can't freeze cabbage. I just want you to do me a favor. And the next time you go to the grocery store, I want you to walk down the grocery aisle and I want you to look at all of the frozen foods that you're going to see there, like all the bird's eye and all of that. And look and see what's already frozen. And you're going to find there's frozen stir fry. Well, guess what? It has cabbage in it, right? So when you see food that's already prepared at the grocery store in the frozen food section, that's a clue to you that, you know what? That can be frozen. So I Googled it and you have to blanch it. Super easy. I just brought a big pot to boil. And then all you do is you put that in there for about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then I took it out and I put it in another big bowl that I had, a big Tupperware bowl. Imagine that, with ice. And it cooled it down, it stopped it, and it was all shredded already. And I took that and I froze that. And so it's ready for stir fry or anything like that. Because I don't want to throw it away. That's a lot of cabbage, right? So that is one way to really save a whole bunch of money, you guys. All right, so I am going to take, as I mentioned, I'm going to make a salad for dinner tonight. And so I'm going to chop up 2 of these peppers, okay? But I'm not going to use it all for the salad. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut them in half because I just want a little bit of salad. And none of these have been washed yet. And so the reason that you don't wash is because you want to put your food in your Fridge Smart. We call it naked and dirty. So here's what we mean by that. Take it out of the plastic wrapper and don't wash it. So that is going to really help keep a lot of the moisture, because that's one of the things that you don't want. You don't want it sitting in a lot of moisture. It's already going to kind of give you a lot of moisture as it is. So I forgot my little trash bowl over here. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Let me grab another container over here that I can use for all my trash. There we go. So there we go. I forgot what I'm saying. You ever do that before? All right, so let's look and see what I'm doing here. All right, so we've got our peppers, and you want to take out the little rib part right there. There we go. And I'm only going to use, like I mentioned earlier, part of this in my salad. So, I was talking about you don't want all that extra moisture because it's gonna, like I mentioned earlier, your food is gonna create moisture. And so you don't want it to create any more by sitting in water. And that's why our Fridge Smarts, when you look at the bottom, and I'll pick one up in just a minute, you'll notice that our Fridge Smart has little ridges on the bottom. See how it's got these little ridges? Like a little channel, and that's so that the water will separate from your fruits and your vegetables. All right, so because I just want a couple of pieces of the peppers, I am going to just cut a couple of strips like that. And I'm going to add that to my salad spinner because remember, I'm going to wash all of this at one time. All right.
Nina, we need your camera down a little, and someone's trying to get in.
Okay. Can you let him in for me?
I
Thank
cannot. I don't see it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, the new settings on Zoom require us to let everybody in. I'm not really sure why it's doing that.
Oh, you have to let me give me authorization for that then
Okay, let's try that.
next time.
I need your co-host.
Okay, got it.
All right, super. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to put a handful of the peppers in. So I'm going to do that with the one part of the orange and one part of the yellow. And then I'm just going to cut them in strips. And again, I keep turning my camera down, but then I have to pop it back up to let people in. All right, so that's what we got going on here. All right.
I'll let him in.
Thank you. All right, so all of this right here, I'm just going to rinse off real quick. And we are going to chop it. So these are going to be perfect to put in our supersonic chopper. So if you're not familiar with the supersonic chopper, here it is. And so lots of times we'll add chopped bell pepper to anything, omelets, spaghetti sauce, anything. I'll add it to a lot because I like the flavor of it. So I'm going to cut them into little chunks about like that. And then we're going to just give it a quick chop. I don't want them to be small and pulverized. I want them to be a pretty good size. And the supersonic chopper is like a food processor without any electricity. So I know some of you watching right now, you camp a lot. So I love this. If you've got a camper, this is going to be your best friend because you can take it with you. And you can also use this. Some of you might live off grid. I know we've got some of our people on the Big Island that are off grid. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to put the collar on. Let me turn this down. So there's a rubber gasket on the bottom of this. It keeps it from hopping all over. My countertop's a little bit wet. There we go. And we're going to add this part on. It's about 9 chops, and that's a pretty good texture. Okay. So that's what it looks like with 9 chops. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in one of our freezer containers. And I'll be labeling this. And that way I have diced bell pepper. Now, the other thing that you could do is you could make your own, like if you have a green bell pepper, you could take your bell pepper and you could take your onion and your celery and you could dice it up and mix it together. In the South, they call that the Trinity because it's 3 different things that are in every single recipe. All right, so I want you to see what I've got here. Here's a little container. I've left enough space. And just like that, I'm going to put a label on this later before I put it in the freezer and label that so that I remember what's inside. Okay. All righty. So those are just a couple of quick tips I think that will help you in really saving a ton of money. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Fridge Smart because to me, Fridge Smart is one of the best tools ever. So this one right here is part of our 4-piece set. And you'll notice that there's a permanent chart right on here. And this permanent chart is the key because it tells you what fruits and vegetables can be stored together. And it also has a little button up there and it's going to tell you how to use this little slider valve. So if you take a look here, you'll see the bell pepper right there. And right next door, you're going to see the cabbage. And you'll notice that I have cabbage and I have some bell peppers inside of here. I'm going to chop up the rest of these later tonight. But I don't want you don't have to watch me chop all peppers, but they need to be chopped and they need to be frozen because they've been in my refrigerator for probably 3 weeks. I know I've been home 2 weeks and we're going to be gone for almost a week and they're not going to get any better. And Fridge Smart is wonderful, but it does not come with formaldehyde. And I'm not going to eat them whole like that. I'm going to chop them all up and use them somehow. And you probably noticed this, that once you chop a bell pepper, if you only use part of it, the rest kind of starts deteriorating pretty quickly. And that's why I like the little tiny ones, because I can use like one little yellow one and one little red one and cut that up and put it on a salad and it's perfect. But this is what I've got. So that's what I'm using. So I'm going to dice them all up and I'm going to freeze them. So this one is our large. Now this one, take a look at this. Woo, this one we don't always have. So if you're interested in this size, you want to make sure that you let your Tupperware consultant know. So this one has got carrots and it's got celery. So you'll look up here, you'll notice there's the little carrot, there's the celery, and it also has, what else do I have inside of here? I'm thinking I have something else. I think that's, oh, I've got some cauliflower in there, and actually cauliflower should actually be over the other one, but it's just a tiny bit that I've shoved in there because I have room, but I should probably move that over into the other one. All right, the next one I'm going to show you guys is the best thing ever, and it's not something we always have, but it is available on our website right now. So if this is something you're thinking, OMG, I need this, I want to recommend that you go to your consultant's website right this minute and grab this little guy, okay? It is our extra large. Holy smokes. All right. So this extra large holds that big package of romaine lettuce that you buy at Costco. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heads of this is in here. I actually already used one because there was 6. And then I've got a little bit of cabbage in here as well. Because remember, I had all that cabbage and I kept some of it out so I'd have it raw. Okay, so let's take a look. So here's all of our lettuce and here's our cabbage. And so you want to go right up here and make sure that you've got it on that one. And I'm going to tell you something, that romaine lettuce, you can't freeze lettuce. That romaine lettuce is going to stay fresh for a month. Now, this I just purchased. So what I do is every couple of days, I go in and I pop open the seal and I put it like this. And I just turn it sideways and I drain any moisture, any water off of it. Because remember, especially lettuce is like full of water. That's, you want to make sure you get that excess moisture out. And then I usually dry off the seal and I put it back on and go back into the refrigerator. So I do that like every couple of days. And so that will be perfect. So love all of my Fridge Smart. Now I keep all of my Fridge Smart in my refrigerator on my shelves. I don't keep any produce in what I call the non-crisper drawers. And the reason for that is because they don't work. So in those drawers is where I keep jars and bottles and things like that. All right. I also have a whole bunch of broccoli and it still looks beautiful, as you can see, but I may end up blanching this tonight. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of these and just rough chop them and put them into my salad for tonight as well. So I didn't get any carrots out, but I'll get some carrots out before I do my salad as well. So we're just gonna rough chop these real quick. So this was a big head of broccoli. So I got off the big pieces already. So all of those pieces are in there. All right, now there is more. I'll have to grab some of those carrots in just a minute. So Chris comes home from the grocery store the other day. I sent him for one item up at Safeway. And he comes back and he said, "Oh, these smelled so good." And they were. So we did eat some of them, but there's a couple left. All right. So what are you going to do with those? Right. So guess what we're going to do with them? We're going to put them in our salad. So these are our little wings. So they have bones in it. So I got to cut these up and make sure that I don't have any Though I'm not going to put that in my salad spinner because I don't want to wash these. I'm just going to put them in this little bowl. Let's turn that down a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing. So I just want to get the chicken because we're going to have a kind of a Chinese chicken salad. So, and that's all depending upon, I'm losing the battle on this one. That all depends on what kind of salad dressing that you're using. So I have an Asian sesame dressing that is super, super yummy. All right, here's the bone. I was not going to find that. All righty. So give us a little bit of chicken. Those are like 3 little chicken wings. How's that? And that'll give us a little protein, right? So I don't know about how many of you guys like salads, but we do eat a lot of salad. Okay. There is not a whole lot of meat on this. So it's a little bit more difficult to cut with this ginormous knife than I thought it would be. But you get the idea, right? You don't want to waste anything. That's barely enough for one person, let alone 2 people, right? All right, let me pull this off. I think it's going to work better with my fingers and then dice it. All righty. So this was the salt and pepper chicken. It's really yummy. All right, almost. Now, I got a couple more things I'm going to share with you. Chunk of meat still. You don't want to waste, right? There we go. All right, so I got some chicken that I can put on there as well. All right, now I want to share with you another product that I use all the time. And one of my best tools, whoopsie, in the freezer, and that is our ice cube trays. Oh, you guys, these are the bomb.com. Okay, so on the bottom, they have these little silicone bumps. See how I push that down? So you always want to make sure that they're all popped up before you use these, because that's how you're going to pop out a cube at a time. So I've got 2 of these. I've actually got a set of a total of 4 of these, and I use them all the time. And I could probably use an extra couple. I try to pop things out and then put them in a different freezer container so it frees those up, but it doesn't always work. So what do I freeze inside of here? Well, first of all, have you ever buy those cartons of chicken broth or beef broth, and you need like a cup or 2 cups or something like that for a recipe, and then you put the carton in your refrigerator? You don't want to let it sit in there for very long. So this is absolutely perfect. You can pour your broth right inside of here and freeze it. And then I will pop them out and put them in a larger container. And that way, when I need some chicken broth, I'm ready to go. You could also, if you wanted to, freeze a large quantity inside of here. So you could measure out like a cup and a half and put it right inside of this container. I also will use this for different sauces. So one of the things that I make often is hollandaise sauce. And we love eggs Benedict, so I'll make hollandaise sauce, but there's always some left over. And so, yeah, the temptation is to stand there and lick the pan, but I don't do that. So you can put all of your leftover hollandaise sauce in here. And here's the great part. Then you can have hollandaise on top of asparagus or even salmon. It's really good. Or even on top of a poached egg anytime you want, because you've got some hollandaise sauce already made. So it's super easy. And you just pop one of those little frozen cubes out and put like 1 cube per serving, or maybe 2 if you want to go that route. But gosh, it's great for that. So any kind of cream sauce is great. I've also used this for heavy whipping cream. So if you buy a carton of heavy whipping cream and you're not going to use it all, you can freeze it. So again, I like to freeze it in cubes because it makes it easier to use small quantities, because typically I don't want a big bunch of it, because normally if you're having a recipe that you need it for, you only need a small amount. So it makes it much easier for that as well. You can use it for fresh herbs. So I do grow a lot of my own herbs here. So I have basil, I have dill, I have mint, I have parsley. Gosh, I can't remember what all I've got out there. Anyway, frequently I have an overabundance of that. And so you can put it right inside of here, and then you can actually fill it with water. It's the best way of freezing fresh herbs. All right, so now let me tell you another one that you can do. How many of you drink coffee? And then you've got a little bit of coffee left in the coffee pot, and you're thinking, I'm not going to drink that. And you pour it down the drain. Don't pour the coffee inside of here and freeze it. Because then when you want iced coffee in the afternoon, you've got iced coffee cubes, and it won't melt and dilute your iced coffee. Instead of putting regular ice cubes, you're putting coffee cubes inside of there. So that works really well. All right, so I mentioned that I have my own herbs. So I always make my own pesto. And so I just popped these out just a little bit ago, and I thought I'd give you an opportunity. So see, I have these little cubes of pesto that came right out. And so I can use just tossing on some pasta or anything like that, but it's a great way of having pesto right at my fingertips. And it's something that I was able to make in advance. So those are just a couple of things that I use my ice trays for. So those are definitely a must have. So really the key to, effectively freezing is not only knowing what can you freeze, but you also want to make sure that you've got the right containers, and our incredible freezer mate containers are phenomenal. So onions, celery, peppers. I mentioned earlier about the cabbage blanching first. So carrots, cabbage, broccoli, zucchini, those you need to blanch. That means just dipping them basically into hot water for about a minute and a half and then giving them a little ice bath. If you buy a big block of cheese and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to eat it all, or maybe you just shred it all with our shredder, you can actually put your shredded cheese in the freezer, sprinkle it with a little bit of cornstarch, and it won't stick together. I mentioned heavy whipping cream. Nut milks. Now, what I mean by that is almond milk, anything like that. Those freeze really well. Regular milk doesn't freeze so good. It separates, and it's not really the best. It's okay if you're going to add it to something. Chicken and beef broth, gravies and sauces, fresh herbs, leftover veggies, cooked or raw, fruits. So I'm making the banana bread right now, but a lot of times I don't use it for bananas, for banana breads. I'll use it for smoothies. So it's not unusual for me to have a container of frozen bananas in the refrigerator. And so I can use that for banana bread if I want to, or I can decide to use it for smoothies. But any type of frozen fruit, I have a papaya sitting on the counter right now. It's needs to be eaten tomorrow. And if for some reason we don't eat it tomorrow because we're leaving, I'm going to chop it up and I'll stick it in my frozen fruit container and we'll be ready to go. And then mushrooms. Yes, you can freeze mushrooms. Jolly Green Giant does it all the time. Again, saute them first. So that the key is, don't throw things away. You've spent a lot of money. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to not waste the money. We need to not waste the food because it just goes in the landfill. It then gives off all those methane gases. And you know what? Then we got a problem, right? All right, so the timer has gone off. Let's check out my muffins and see they're not quite done. Maybe they are. I think they are. They might need to be just a little bit browner. All right, so let me show you what they look like. So one of the things that I love, they're nice and brown around the edges. One of the things that I love about these, you'll notice I put those in there without any papers. So again, that is going to save money and you don't have some trash going in there. These are super, super hot. But look how those just pop right out. Do you see how I did that? And your muffin comes right out. So yummy, yum. So these need to cool a little bit. And then they'll be ready. Yummy, yum. And I'll save a couple of them out for breakfast tomorrow, and then I'm going to freeze the rest. So great way to be able to make sure I'm not adding more trash into the landfill, right? All righty. So we talked earlier about my dead celery, a quick soak. So it's been a little bit more than 10 minutes. So let's take a look and let's see. Remember my Hawaiian celery. Let's see what happens. All right. So one of the other things that I do is I frequently will clean out the freezer by making a big pot of soup. I'm going to tell you so many things will go into that, every vegetable, sauces, and so forth. All right, you guys, look at that. Remember how it was just all limp? It's not quite as crisp and crunchy as I'd like it to be, but did you hear that? It's got a little crisp to it. So that gives you an idea of just how you can revive it. Celery is the best. Don't throw it out if it gets that way. See, it's still crunchy. It is salvageable. So ice water is the key. And then I'm going to drain the water off of these. I'm going to chop them and I'm going to freeze those. And that way I'll have some frozen celery in the refrigerator as well to go along with my frozen peppers. All right. And I think I got a half an onion in the refrigerator. I'm going to put that in the chopper and chop that up. And then I'll have a container of frozen onions as well. So I'll have my onions, I'll have my celery, and I'll have my bell pepper. I'm not mixing it together. I may end up using it all at the same time, but I'm going to have it frozen separately. So as we're wrapping things up, I'm going to go back and just remind you about a couple of things. So that celery, as I mentioned, it's probably not going to be the best for eating raw because it's not super crunchy. But you know what? Again, put it inside of a casserole. Overcooked vegetables can also be put into the soups as well as that chicken broth that I told you I can freeze, that heavy whipping cream, any kind of vegetables. I mean, it's just a great way to use up different things that you have in your refrigerator and make a big pot of yummy soup. All right, now I want to teach you one last thing. Get creative. 40% of food in America is wasted, you guys. So again, know what you need before you shop. Think of a meal to make up with those items and check your cupboards for the rest of ingredients. I find that I almost always have the staple products that I have on hand. I keep all of my dry ingredients and my modular mates, and I've got a pretty good collection of all the sauces and vinegars and all that kind of good stuff. But I want to teach you something really cool. All right, so I'm going to open up a browser, okay? And let me share my screen now. Hang on just a minute. That's not what I wanted to do. Well, okay, hold on. I got to open up a browser first. I'm on the wrong thing. Too many buttons here. So, share screen. So this is a really fun thing. Only one time has it ever failed me. So here we are. We're at Google. All right. So I'm going to type in chicken, broccoli, rice, peppers, mushrooms. Okay. And then the word recipe. And look what happens, you guys. You get these different recipes: chicken with mushroom sauce, broccoli brown rice, chicken broccoli and mushroom casserole. So you're going to get a bunch of different recipes that use what you have. So if you open up your refrigerator and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to cook? I got a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Google it. Just put the ingredients in there, and you guys, guess what? You're going to get a recipe. Only one time has it been something that we were like, oh, this was absolutely horrible. And it was because it had Brussels sprouts in it and it just didn't go well. But I just find this to be a great tool and I use it all the time. It's one of the best ways of being able to use up. So open up Google, type in the ingredients, and see what you come up with. Okay. So, yes, Tracy, you use it all the time for sure. Okay. Okay, let's see. What my laptop is not showing the right thing. Oh well. That's what happens when you try to do two things at once, right? All right, everybody. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the ideas we shared. Oh my gosh, it's been an hour. I can't believe it. So tonight, as I said, we're having salad Gonna wash that in my salad spinner. We've got some chicken to put on, and then after dinner, I'm gonna chop up the rest of these vegetables and get them in the freezer, and that way I won't be throwing any food away at all. So thanks for joining us, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or something creative that you've done by using your freezer skills as well. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.